All right, this is the point where we left off on the last video. We've got some of our drawing in. We need to, just a couple more things we got to draw. We need to put in a soffit right here, and the soffit structure. Okay, and this part you may not, this may be totally foreign to you because I know you've seen a house with an eave. You know, we've talked about walls and things like that and how they're structured, but you've never seen this part, which is the soffit and the fascia of the eave. Okay, so what is, first thing we'll draw is a fascia. So what is a fascia? Let's go online here and take a look and see what a fascia is. Okay, that's F-A-S-C-I-A. And, of course, that's looking at the, oh, here we go. Here's one on a house right in here. Let's see if we can get some more images, hopefully pertaining to a house and not, I think it has something to do with a muscle or muscle tissue also. Let's do that. Put the word house in front of it. Okay. All right. So here we go. These are fascias. Okay. Here's a good picture. All right. This front part right here, this is colored white in this picture. It is a decorative board that is placed on the eave so that you're not just looking at exposed timber or exposed lumber. Okay. The same with the soffit. The soffit also kind of closes up that area where you would normally see exposed lumber. You know, we don't want to do that. You know, we want it to look nice, so we put a fascia and a soffit over it. Just kind of closing that area up, and it also keeps varmints from getting in, because if we left open lumber up here, of course there are other ways we could block that area up so varmints won't get in, but this is just another way of doing it so varmints don't crawl up and then go into your attic and stuff like that. Of course, that's not 100% foolproof. Sometimes that is a problem in certain areas, and also on older houses maybe. Let's see. Here's a structural, kind of in the construction process, and they have that fascia board right there. So if you didn't have that, you would see nothing but, I'll show you. So this is a roof framing. So at the end where the eaves are at, of course, these all have subfascias, you know, underneath fascia right there. This one doesn't. This one just has the boards come to the end, and they're cut right there. And that's you know, this one here is a good example. Just open boards. You wouldn't have anything covering that. So we have to design that fascia, and we're going to kind of go backwards with it, I guess you would say. So we're going to put the fascia on first right here, and then we're going to put the structural fascia. There's actually two fascias. There's one that's pretty to look at and one that's more or less something to put that pretty board on, more of a structural fascia. So I am going to draw this one. It's going to be a 1-inch fascia. And again, this is the decorative portion of that. So I'm going to draw out 1 inch, and then I'm going to draw down. Now, of course, they come down. They can come down at different distances and stuff like that. But typically, it does kind of overhang or hangs over the distance of that part of the board or whatever. Okay, and that can be as much as 12 inches. Okay, and then I want to kind of close it up here like so. Okay, that's a fascia. There's going to be soffit material, and that might be a little bit long. I might go, instead of 12 inches, I might go 10. So let's take a couple inches off of that. See if that's going to be enough space. I think that'll be enough space. So let's go with a 10-inch fascia. We'll trim that off right there. Okay, so now the board that would actually go right across here. Now this board they're going to put in here, it's going to be a 2x8, because that's what we're using right here for our rafters is 2x8s. But it's going to be a 2x8 that's going to be trimmed a little differently. So we're going to start here and kind of come up this way, 1.5 inches, which is the thickness of that 2x material. Okay, so 1.5 inches, I'm going to draw down. Okay, 7 1/4. Okay, and connect it right there. Now, of course, there are other ways of doing this. They sometimes might put a longer piece of board in there to cover up the additional measurement there, but I'm going to just go ahead and draw this. We're going to do it like that. Okay, so they'll cut the top of it at an angle here, and then the bottom is just going to be the natural bottom of the board. And this is what you're going to end up looking at, something just like this. So this one, we want to put our little X in it because that is the cut end of a piece of structural lumber. Okay, and I'm not going to go to the corner because, again, it's cut, so I'm going to take it up to about right there. Okay, next thing we're going to do, and 2, they may even cut this. Let's go ahead and cut that as well. So we're going to go straight across here and just connect right there, I think, right there. Okay, so they'll cut a little dovetail off of that as well. Okay, so that is what you're looking at. Okay, next is going to be the soffit board. Soffit board is 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to pick up this little reference geometry right there and pull it down 3/4 inch, and it's going to go straight across, just like so. Now I can either draw the upper part of it or offset it 3/4 of an inch, like so. Okay, and that is going to be your soffit board. Okay, now we're going to do some texturing to this. Now this type of material that we're using, it comes in different types of material. Sometimes you can use actual wood, or sometimes you'll use some material that's like a composite material. And that's what we're going to use here is a composite, so like a composite wood material. Sometimes it may even be like what we call hardy plank, something of that nature. And I'm just going to use a pattern of sand, the AR sand, right here, and put it in here and in here. And I'm going to change the scale of it to 0.25 inch, or I'm sorry, not inch, just 0.25. Okay, and represent it just like that. All right, now the soffit in here has structure to it. We got to hold this up right here, the soffit board. I mean, this, having it kind of coming across that little dovetail right there is not going to be enough to really hold it up. So we actually put a couple of pieces of wood in here. We have one that's sort of like a ledger. Okay, it's like a nailer. Well, I guess I wouldn't call it a ledger in this respect, but definitely would call it a nailer. It is going to be a 2x4, so 3.5 inches up, and then come over this way 1.5 inches because that is the thickness of that 2x4, and then we bring it down right here, and then we just put our little cross in there to represent a cut piece of lumber. Okay, now there's also a piece that goes this way as well, okay, horizontally, I guess you would call that. And that one is actually going to be kind of hidden behind, or at least in our picture, it's going to be hidden behind that piece of rafter, that 2x8. So I'm going to actually select that line and turn it into a hidden line. All right, and then that represents 2x4 going horizontally right here. So they'll place those about one every, 16 to, 18 inches or something like that, in order to give this something to attach to. So you got this 2x4, and then you got this one right here. Okay, now underneath you've got a frieze board that goes right down here, and it's kind of decorative. It's to basically hide this joint, okay, that joinery right there. We don't want that to just be open. Of course, we've got this board coming up right up against bricks, and we know bricks aren't perfectly straight, and then there's gaps in it where the grout between the bricks or the mortar between the bricks is. So we want to cover up those gaps and make that joint right there look really nice. So we're going to use some 1x material. We'll use like a 1x4, maybe a 1x6. It really just depends. It's up to you, the designer. But let's just use a 1x4. And now 1x4, the thickness of that 1x4 is actually going to be 3/4 of an inch by 3.5 inches. So I'm going to draw out to the right, or at least pick up that little piece of geometry right there and come out 3/4 of an inch, and then start drawing downwards 3.5 inches. Okay, put that right there, and then we're going to cross it out because that is, again, that's also a cut piece of lumber that we're looking at the end of it. All right, so that also provides not only support, but primarily it just hides that joint. What they'll do is they'll caulk right here, put some caulk. I'm sure you've probably seen caulk. You've seen your parents caulking. But it's sort of a silicone / mastic type of material that comes in a tube, and they run a bead of that right there in that joint to kind of smooth that joint out. And it almost looks like it's a continuous piece of wood once it's all painted and everything else. So it's, you know, mainly another beautification piece. Okay. All right, so we have our soffit. Next thing we're going to do is put some insulation in the walls. Go ahead and get that taken care of. So I'm going to change, or actually I have to load some insulation. I don't have any loaded. And it's, of course, AutoCAD calls it batting. I always call it insulation because that's what it really is. But it's also called batting. And I'm going to set that as current. Click OK. Line tool. And sort of find the center of that and draw up. I think that was the center. Well, actually, I could have clicked right on the center right up there. And of course, it is too big. So I'm going to right click and go to properties. Scale that down to a 0.5. Instead, right now it's just at 1. It's at 1:1. So 0.5. And that's the right size. Now I got another piece of insulation I want to add. And that's up here in the attic space. Okay. So I'm going to draw a line. Let's find the center of this. Go across like so. And I need to move it up a little bit. So I'm going to click on it, hit the move button, and then click right here and just kind of move it up to where it's sitting on top of that line if I can. I might have to zoom in real close to get it. It's a very small adjustment. And what I really want to do is I want to get it right in the center like that, because I'm going to come up and scale it up just a little bit. So I'm going to click on that, right click. Now it's not a totally necessary because it fits in there pretty good. So I'm going to upscale it to 1.2. That's a little bit too much, so we'll say 1.1, and that fits in there perfectly. Okay, so 1.1 line type scale. Okay, so there's our insulation. Now, one thing I kind of forgot was the drywall down here for the roof, or not the roof, but the ceiling. And I'm going to just offset that line 1/2 of an inch. 1/2 of an inch. No, I'm sorry. Take that back. This is ceiling drywall, so it's got to be 5/8 of an inch. Offset that down here, and I'm going to fill it. I think I'm still on the sand. Put it right in here. Nope, I'm actually on, oh, okay, I hit the escape button and that went away. I don't know, I think it was freaking out there for a minute. It was doing the batting for the fill. Okay, so that takes care of that. Now we can come in and just kind of trim off a few things right in there. Okay, now what we got to do is label everything. Okay, we got to label all of our stuff. And what I'm going to do, instead of me dragging you through a video and watching me write text and stuff on the screen, I've already explained to you what everything was. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to annotate it and then just take a picture of it and put it on Schoology. And that way you're just looking at the picture and then you just follow my annotations. And just remember, neatness is the primary thing here. All right, we want this to be readable. We want it to be very neat. We also want them to understand what we're pointing at. So try to keep your leaders, all the angles very equal so they're not all scattered about and going at different angles, and that just makes it look bad, also makes it hard to read. Okay, so I'm going to annotate this, and then I'll just upload the photo of the annotations, and you just copy right off of that.